and to the U.S. Senate as well for their trust and confidence. We've got a lot of thanks to give out here.
Today we're talking about Joe Biden, also known as Grope Biden. Now, Joe's been the Democratic Party's frontrunner, despite only announcing his candidacy earlier Thursday morning. And I hate to be this person, but that really does say a lot about society. Specifically, it says that politics is largely about name recognition. Joe Biden's current popularity comes from his time as Obama's vice president, where he became well known as the powerless, lovable doofus, who was supposed to be the calming essence for the hearts of white Americans who simply couldn't cope with the reality of a black Muslim president. He is in every way a representation of the old guard, boring, conservative, unwilling to change the status quo. And this was apparent by the way he described Obama when he was running against him.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Now, Joe is famous for his political gaffes, like calling Obama clean and articulate, which certainly signals some biases, but was likely well-intended. It's just typical out-of-touch old guy behavior, like talking about Indian immigrants in Delaware.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
And most might not know this, but 2007 wasn't the first time Biden mounted an unsuccessful presidential campaign. Incidents of obvious plagiarism in his campaign speeches and during his time at Syracuse University College of Law obliterated his campaign back in 1988.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is quite frankly, ludicrous.
Interesting take on plagiarism coming from the dude who recently said this about my generation facing multiple crises created by his generation, the boomers.
The younger generation now tells me how tough things are. Give me a break. No. I have no empathy.
Finally! I think that's what everyone was looking for, a president who sees stagnant wages juxtaposed against rising productivity or the tremendous growth of wealth and income inequality and says, toughen up, you pansies. But Biden's words or creepy old man behavior doesn't bother me as much as his awful policy positions, like when he agreed with Paul Ryan on cutting Social Security and Medicare.
Paul Ryan was correct. When he did the tax code, what's the first thing he decided we had to go after? Social Security and Medicare. Now, we need to do something about Social Security and Medicare. That's the only way you can find room to pay for it.
If young people don't toughen up, how will they deal with not having Social Security or Medicare in the future when the Democrats inevitably compromise and cut it? So, while Biden is a laughable, out-of-touch character at best, his policy positions and track record in Congress show a much, much darker side, like in 1975, when a young Joe Biden turned liberals against integration by advocating against busing, and even went as far as to introduce an amendment that would bar schools from using federal funds to assign teachers or students to schools for reasons of race. You know, just regular old compromise politics between people who thought black people should be separate but equal and those who thought that they should be integrated. But I guess it makes sense when you consider that Biden even boasted about being good pals with segregationist Strom Thurmond. He said their relationship just worked back then. Politics just worked. The result of this work with Strom Thurmond was spearheading the Comprehensive Control Act in 1984, which expanded federal drug trafficking penalties and also included civil asset forfeiture so the government could just take whatever they wanted from you without even a trial. Or who could forget Biden's work on the AntiDrug Abuse Act of 1986 and 1988, or his signature achievement of partly writing the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which contributed to the growth of the U.S. prison population. Here's how he defended this bill and how he didn't want to look at the socioeconomic root causes of crime and focus on locking people up instead.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street.
Yeah, there's plenty more to talk about this, and I will go over his long track record and touch on how he essentially co-wrote the Patriot Act and boasted about it for years, championed the Iraq War in my Twitch later at twitch.tv/Hasan at 5 p.m. Pacific. But if you want to change the rose-colored lens people look at Biden through, I suggest you show them this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm Hasan Piker, and this has been The Breakdown. You like this video? Great. Never miss another breakdown video by hitting the subscribe button below, and also ring the bell to get notified whenever we publish a new one.